If you're looking for sex, violence, and passionate love, you've come to the right place. It's called opera. Opera has everything, and they do it with the greatest of all the arts possible. There's scenery design, there's ballet, there's symphony, there's great literature and language, and most important of all, there's singing. Louisa Miller, the music is much heavier, the subject is tragic. It is a step into the verismo world that we know from Puccini, Leoncavallo. It's a step toward that. This was written in 1850, which was sort of mid-career for Verdi. He had made a contract to do an opera for San Carlo in Naples, and he was on the verge of breaking it because he wanted to do something called the Siege of Florence, L'Assedio di Firenze. And they didn't want it because there were political interferences and there was a lot of insecurity among the rulers at that time, and the censors were very strong. And Verdi actually gave up on doing anything for them. And then finally he hit upon this. This was originally a play by Friedrich Schiller, who was a very famous German playwright, I think second only to Goethe at the time when he was writing. He wrote Don Carlo, the original of Don Carlo. He wrote The Robbers, the big basis of Fra Diavolo. He wrote a number of works that had been made into operas by different composers, and this was a very dramatic story. Verdi turned the libretto over to Salvatore Camarano, and who had worked on several things for Verdi. But this one, I think they got together a libretto that Verdi had said that he wanted drama, he wanted passion, he wanted lots of conflict in the opera, and there is that. It's a scenario that will remind some of you of the ballet of Giselle, where the nobleman has fallen in love with a peasant girl, Louisa Miller. His father is Count Walter. Interestingly, Placido Domingo had played the hero, whose name is actually Rodolfo, as in La Bohème, but he calls himself Carlo when he meets this peasant girl, and they fall in love. She's something of the village beauty. It turns out that the son of the Count, who's named appropriately Wurm, spelled W-U-R-M, I think it means worm in snake or the dragon. In the Ring they speak about the Wurm all the time. And he is also in love with Louisa Miller. So that's the basic conflict. This is a quick preview from the San Francisco Opera. It's interesting to us because Michael Fabiano, who was here for the Palm Beach Opera Gala and sang absolutely beautifully, and I think he sang the Rodolfo in La Bohème also. Listen to the texture of the music is so very different from Mozart. This was what, 60, 70 years later.
in suono angelico, amo che sol dicea, mi tradia. Dio mi lascia in abbandono, Dio mi lascia in abbandono, Dio mi lascia in abbandono, Dio mi lascia in Dio mi lascia in abbandono, Dio mi lascia in abbandono. Dio mi lascia in abbandono. Fu giusto che il mio sospetto il volle le fiammole te acqui d'ogni bene il vecchio santo senza macchia io volladore una figlia il nome soltanto ciel mi festi e paga e son ma la figlia al tuo dono serva in fatto al genitore fu giusto che il mio sospetto il volvi le fiammole petto ogni bene il bene più santo il bene più santo senza macchia volladore senza macchia io volladore metto in colo me sarà e non giuro colpa timona derrota te questo capo non è sicuro potria da ceppo cadere a parole in colo me questo capo e non giuro non è sicuro colpa timona questo capo non è sicuro potria del ceppo cadere a
His father has pledged Rodolfo, or Carlo, to marry the Federica. Federica is the mezzo-soprano. He tells her he doesn't want to, he's in love with someone else, and she, of course, is very furious because she does love him. I think it's such a good contrast, isn't it? And you hear the difference in the strong drama in the Verdi as compared to Mozart. You hear the difference in harmonies. Verdi was still in this sort of papa phase where you hear the guitar accompaniment of the papa, papa, and then they start to sing. And he got out of that, of course, when we think of Aida and Otello. But it's very interesting to hear. This was written just before he wrote the three operas that gave him eternal fame, the Traviata, Trovatore, and Rigoletto, in 1850. They were written in 1851, 1853. So I think you see some of the progress through Rossini, as you've just listened to, and into this. This is the opening of Luisa Miller. many of the operas in the repertoire have survived only because one aria was very popular and was sung a great deal. And that is not particularly, I mean, the music, I think, of Louisa Miller is very beautiful. The plot is a little bit convoluted, and you have the feeling that characters were brought into it for no reason at all. This Federica is really not necessary. And there's a subplot where Rodolfo threatens his father, saying that he knows a secret, that if it were betrayed, that how the Count became the Count, it was by killing his brother. And that has nothing to do with the plot, whatever, so I don't know, they may cut that out. But this one has been in the repertoire so much because there is a beautiful tenor aria. And I thought it would be interesting for you to hear Placido Domingo singing the tenor aria when he was a very young blonde man. Now he's going to be playing the father, so it's an interesting comparison. This is Quando le sere al placido.
Le gioie, le lacrime, l'affanno, tutto è nell'aria, tradimento, questa mano stringermi dalla sua man sentia mi tradia
really one of the greatest artists who ever lived, and I don't think there's ever been an artist as Pavarotti said. Someone said, "Oh, you're the greatest tenor in the world," and Pavarotti said, "No, that Domingo is, because he does so many things." Pavarotti basically sang the same repertoire all the time, and Domingo sang in French and German and Russian, and he sang everything imaginable. I think he had 100-some roles, and then he began conducting. And then he began singing as baritone. And I don't know why the critics are so rough and so awful to him. I'm just so grateful that we still have him, that we can watch him at all. He's such a great artist. It's marvelous. Well, so then we're going to another great artist whom I don't play often enough. Did any of you meet Renata Scotto? When she was here, a very charming woman, tiny little thing. Couldn't have been more charming, and she was a wonderful actress. She had the bad luck to appear at the same time or a little bit later when Callas was at her peak and Renata Tebaldi, and so she didn't get the attention that I think she deserved. Here, the finale comes that Rodolfo is despairing because he thinks Luisa doesn't love him and is going to marry Worm, and his life is over, and his father is going to force him to marry Frederica, and that's the end. So he goes to the miller's house. Miller's the father, obviously, Luisa Miller. And he goes to the house there and accuses her, and he pours poison into a glass of water, which it seems to me would be detectable, but anyway. And he pours her a glass too, and he shares the poison with her, and the two of them, of course, die, as an opera should end. That's how it ends. So here's the finale. So charming. All right, my darlings, until next week. Thank you.